What is up, Titans? Welcome to a brand new recap, breakdown, and review of Titan Season 2, Episode 8, and there is so much to discuss from this episode. I feel like there was really quite a few points that was super interesting. We got the Tim Drake launched into this season even more, and how about that moment with Scarecrow at the end where he literally went, hold on a second. Yeah, that was quite possibly one of my most favorite moments of Titans ever. Yeah, I know, but that was just that. I'll talk about that when we get to that, but I'm gonna shut up now. Let's get into the details of episode 8. Like this video if you do go on to enjoy it. It really does help out with that YouTube algorithm on this channel, and hey, if you're not subscribed, subscribe! So, this episode picks up kind of where we left off with Gar and Molly. They're kind of discussing the last interaction Molly had with Jason, and that was when he arrived as Red Hood to her apartment, and, you know, he liberated that kid from that guy who was taking him in for the Joker. She seems to be kind of, like, not really understand. Well, she was asking, wait, why would Jason know a Titan? And, like, Gar was kind of dancing around that a little bit. But to me, it's kind of obvious as well, Molly, especially if he arrived in your apartment with a whole new get-up of a suit, if you know what I mean. But regardless, this was like a good storyline to continue with Gar. I was looking forward to see where it went, but I am seeing comments already, though, to be fair, and I can say that it is a fair critique. So this episode, we had Gar continuing to look into that and everything, but just jumping to the cut, when Molly got back to Gar later on in the episode, and he then revealed to Dick that Jason wanted to meet, I think a lot of fans wanted Gar to meet Jason, so they could actually have that discussion, because it seemed this season like they were really propelling Gar to kind of have that little pairing they had last season, for example, where he went with Jason to go to Dr. Light in that tunnel where he got abducted by Deathstroke and Dr. Light. They were training together, so I thought they were capitalizing upon that, but this episode, all of those Gar moments just led up to a point of where it then just got handed off to Dick. Now, I do understand how that's very relevant to Dick to tackle this. I just feel like I can understand if some people who really wanted Beast Boy to have that sentimental potential scene between Jason, it made sense for that to follow through with what Gar's concerns were, with how he wanted to maybe reach him. Long story short, without me going around in circles, I think it comes across that, oh yeah, Gar's getting a storyline where he's going to speak to Jason in this episode, but then it was just kind of slumped off on Grayson. Now, as I said, I do get that, but it's just a bit of a shame, because that would have been really cool to see, especially when the show kind of made it seem like it would be given to Gar. So yeah, as much as I really enjoyed Gar's scenes in this episode, it would have been pretty sweet if he went to the tunnels, or maybe a way to tackle that with making Dick Grayson still go there would be Gar to go along with him, and then maybe just even a few supporting lines saying, hey Jason, man, like, we're still rooting for you or something. Obviously that's a terrible line from me, but you get what I'm on about. Like, that would have been that extra nice kind of sentimental encouragement from Ryan Potter's Beast Boy if he went to the tunnels as well. I do like how that scene ended, though, with the Titan signal, and it seems that, I guess, Barbara's somewhat reversed her stance on vigilantes, because a big premise of her character in this season that was being followed through, but also just announced way before the season, was just her problem with vigilantes and how they kind of bring the villains out. But I'm guessing she's kind of got past that now with her fling with Grayson. I really love the dynamic of them this episode, and you can still very much so tell they're pursuing things, even though we didn't get like a massive development in the romance storyline. And as I said at the end of last episode, I would love to know your thoughts if you think this is going to get to a certain extent of longevity, or do you think it's just honestly going to be a thing for this season where it's a bit of a fling, but then they, at the end of when Scarecrow's put away again and all of that, they realize that they just probably should leave it. Meanwhile, my goodness, we have Blackfire and Connor in bed. I'm not gonna lie, as weird as some people are finding it, I think they are giving you enough, and I spoke about this in my last week's review. The audience hints that he is already matured up to a point where, even though yes, he is a kind of fresh clone baby, so to speak, and they literally did state that he has the mental maturity as of last season of a toddler. I'm guessing because he's a clone and everything like that, without repeating myself too much from last week's video, I just basically said I'm guessing that his maturity is kind of accelerated. But what I was getting to is that I do like these two together in a sense. It is fun. I see why they did it, because, for example, they're kind of both outcasts in their own unique way. I don't need to explain Blackfire, but obviously Connor, I'm sure a lot of you know what I'm about to say. He's trying to find his own identity because he's a clone of Superman, but he's also half of Lex Luthor, and that kind of in of itself makes you have to deal with quite the unique situation as to what Blackfire does, being an outcast of her own planet and whatnot. And, you know, just the scenes in the car later on and stuff, you can tell, and it's just the dynamic. I think they bounce quite well off each other, and I just thought it was nice and sweet with how she was helping him realize where Krypton was in the stars, and he asked after Tamaran, and we got to see Tamaran as a little kind of planet. But yeah, I just really liked it. And then they kind of got back to it again, and there was even Pink Mist. Is that like a hint of Blackfire's powers? Because I don't think that was to do with Starfire coming in, especially considering the color that it was, which does pertain more to Blackfire. They broke the bed as well, but I thought it was absolutely hilarious how Superboy just sped away. I know he sped away really fast, but you can just tell that he was kind of quite clenched together, you could say, as he tried to run his ass out of there so Corey, I guess, wouldn't see what was unfolding. Because in that moment, I thought she did, but then again, of course, she was in a vision state, so she technically didn't see what was happening there, even though she obviously cottoned on very, very fast, and she probably could just tell that Blackfire was acting pretty awkward in bed and somebody was in the bathroom. But what comes next is something I've been looking forward to for a long time, and I think a lot of people have been interested to see how they would adapt this. And I know we've been given teasers. Once again, they gave quite a bit of information away, but it's kind of obvious how Tim Drake's origin would come into this show, and that is through him deducing the identities of Nightwing and Batman. And it literally starts off like that because he arrives at Wayne Manor, and this is shortly after the events, obviously, of his father getting shot. And Gar spots him there, tells Dick, who's obviously getting ready to go to the gala with Barbara, which never ends up happening. And this was just a really cool scene. I love the symbolic imagery they kind of put on screen. For example, the way the camera pans away from Dick Grayson wearing a suit get-up, which is similar to that of what we've seen Ian Glenn's Bruce in, but the way he's got his leg crossed over like that, not that you can see my freaking leg crossing right now, but you get what I'm trying to say. I swear, well, I can't guarantee this, but there's a very similar, if not identical scene of the way they kind of zoomed out of Ian Glenn's Bruce Wayne. Obviously trying to make the imagery seem like the father, like son type thing. Now, even though Dick Grayson is meant to be moving out of Batman's shadow, there is still a lot of the father in the sun. And that has been shown through many, many other symbolic things this episode, with Dick's concussion giving him a bit of a trip this episode. I really do feel like, without getting into that too much already, and this might be a bit too soon, it might be, I don't know, because I have heard about this through the grapevine that, and I'm sure this is the long story thing anyway, that end game, and this is been made abundantly obvious anyway through the Be a Better Batman stuff, they're obviously projecting Dick into Batman. The only thing I'm apprehensive about with that is he's only just become Nightwing. So already having his bat-like moment, for example in the hospital where he saw the letters and stuff shape into a bat, and there's other little moments where it's like when Tim Drake was shot and he saw himself there as Nightwing. I think that's meant to be symbolic of not necessarily Nightwing dying, because he is still Nightwing, but I think it is very slowly edging him into the leader, the protector. I'm not trying to jump the gun, I could be reading that a little bit wrong, but no matter what, there is a lot of foreshadowing here into the Be the Better Batman, the Batman imagery, little bits here and there, reading between the lines, setting up the end game. And with Tim Drake, I don't think they could have done it any better with the way they approached it, like how he went to see the Flying Graysons. He even got the poster or whatever signed by Dick, and so he's been paying attention to the moves that he would only make back then, to then make those moves again as Robin and then Nightwing, and without repeating the lines and everything, it was very true to the character. Tim Drake is a very smart Robin, and I just love how he broke it down for Dick, and you could tell Dick Grayson was impressed. And not only that, I feel like Jay Lacargo's just portrayal of Tim Drake, he's very, very likable. He's very, very likable. I don't really see why anyone wouldn't like what's going on with his portrayal. I know some people get caught up on the whole, race bending and stuff like that. It's just, to me, the way I see it is, I look at Jay Lacargo's perspective, I look at the way the show has written his role into the script, I look at the way he's interacting with Dick Grayson, the way his origin is being adapted into this iteration, and I just go like this. And if anyone has a problem with that, I guess it's their loss, you know? What can I say? In this moment, he reveals that he wants to be the next Robin. Like, he is propelled forward into this journey through what he's been through. And we will revisit this a little bit more later, because obviously we get Tim Drake scattered throughout this episode. But I couldn't love Vincent Kartheiser's portrayal of Scarecrow anymore if I tried. Like, seriously, he is fantastic. I need to be careful, because the rest of this review might just be me repeating myself praising Scarecrow if I don't try and reel it in. I love at this point of the story, we see a little bit more of the unhinged Scarecrow, which could even be more accurate to the character than what we've even seen from Vincent Kartheiser's Scarecrow thus far. Because so far he's been composing himself, maintaining this kind of, stature of, like, calculated plans and whatnot. But once those plans got foiled a bit, when it was getting into the way he was really trying to see that plan out, being on the precipice of it, but also the insecurity of losing that right as he's about to achieve his potential, biggest achievement of all time in Gotham, out of all of his master plans. It just brings out this desperation from that villain that I think is extremely true to the character. In this scene as well, we had Jason being quite unhinged, and this is what I was talking about with how this drug seems to be making him more and more and more ill. He's clearly an addict in withdrawal right now, and he's trying to find more of the drug, but luckily they didn't have any more since the Snowy Cone's place got foiled by the Titans in the last episode, meaning that he's kind of forced to get a bit more clean and also come into his own, which brought out some very good scenes for Jason this episode, tackling with his regret and remorse over the actions that he's done thus far. And that is a discussion in of itself, which I'm sure people will be debating about, and we'll get to that in a minute when obviously he's talking about the Hank situation. But regardless, as I've maintained, these drugs have changed Jason quite literally. It does allow you to be this complete apathetic tool. They've also backed that up through the citizens, like everyday Joe citizens turning into psychopaths. So, for example, if the brainwashing of Beast Boy, even though that was a bit more of a deliberate reprogramming of his mind in Season 2, so it's way more easier to digest that when he murders people, understandably, I do feel like people need to look at this similar to that. It's obviously not as literal as reprogramming your brain, but the drug effectively did make Jason a puppet and did capitalize upon some deep-rooted issues and angst that he had, which they also have set up. And then you add in the episode 5 context, it just gave him the spark, and Scarecrow lit the fire, so to speak. Jason at this point is done, and he kind of really cuts Scarecrow off. He beats him, and there was a very good moment and performance, I think, from Karen Waters, where he just kind of screamed at Scarecrow saying, "I'm done telling secrets, I'm done being used," and he he smacks him quite a bit, and he goes off on his own, which allows, as I said, Jason to really kind of start to revert back to the old Jason we knew, but clearly one who is being tortured by the actions he has done. Now, if things being predictable, because there's another thing to address in this scene, isn't always a bad thing. Like, just because things can be predictable doesn't mean it's always bad. It just means you might have seen something coming. What I'm on about here is the water supply, and this is something I think I've mentioned this quite a few times. I said, oh, imagine if they do it like the Batman Begins thing, where they're trying to put the fear stuff in the water supply so it doses all of Gotham. Obviously, this isn't fear, it's kind of anti-fear, so his achievement here is to make everyone apathetic and basically become like Jason and whatnot. And it turned out to be true. That is the grand plan, and ultimately the Titans helped that come to fruition at the end, which was, even more smart of Scarecrow. It is a bit of a retreaded story aspect from Batman Begins and a few other stories, but yet again, I think it's still cool. We cut back to Dick Grayson dropping Tim Drake off, not so far away from the Gotham Noodle House, and this gets onto a discussion about, he's not going to tell anyone, he doesn't need to worry about that, he knows the rules and the secrets of maintaining Batman and Robin's and whatnot's identities. He said there's something he never figured out, and that was who the second Robin was, because he thought it was Jason Todd. Well, you were right, Tim. And this just shows even more of his detective skills, shall we say. And this is quite sad in a way, because he thought it couldn't have been him, because, Robin died, and he was opposite the street when my frickin' place was getting shut up. And I still don't think, even though he made the connection with him being opposite the street wearing a hoodie, I don't think he's actually realized that Jason was the one who put those people to go into the Gotham Noodle House. That's going to be something to reconcile with at some point. Now, because of the information that Tim Drake gave Dick Grayson, yet again, already Tim Drake is helping out with his detective skills, helping out Dick Grayson tell Barbara a way to track Jason Todd, and that is kind of through his movement. And that is when Barbara finds the location of Jason Todd 10 minutes ago outside this place. I did think, you know, just to be a bit nitpicky here, like, Dick Grayson was just, like, already there somehow. And also, even though I thought the next part was a good moment, you would have thought Nightwing, Robin would have been smarter than to pull out of a road and get completely sideswiped by a car. Yet again, nitpick. I don't really care at the end of the day, but it does make the character look a bit stupid. But sometimes I get it, you know, in the moment where we have tunnel vision and he has just seen Jason Todd, to be fair, he maybe just thought, I need to go out there. But I'm not gonna lie, I would still probably look right. This moment gives Jason an opportunity to kind of stand over Dick, and you can easily tell that Jason is looking pretty sad in this moment. They even deduced that he might have even been the one to call 911. That didn't initially add up to them, but I also thought like anyone could have called 911, but apparently it was Jason. But yeah, this was them starting to learn that, oh, maybe he's kind of starting to change. Yet again, I do want to remind people, if some people were thinking like this progression of, you know, psychopath Jason who wanted to kill Dick and, you know, Scarecrow, give me another plan, like, I need to kill Dick, Dick's a psychopath, like, remember, that is what the drug does to people. That is the drugged up version of Jason. This is a version of Jason who isn't taking that drug now. And don't forget, as soon as he was brought back from the Lazarus pit, he was, you know, hit up with a super special dose, as Scarecrow put it, of the drug as well, which immediately from resurrection made him under Scarecrow's control. And Scarecrow, you can even imagine, I've been thinking of this comic book cover in my head. If there's any artists out there, frickin' do this. Put like Red Hood there maybe with like Jason's mask off and Scarecrow just being like the puppet master. I can imagine that being like a front page DC Titans comic book adaptation cover. I don't know, I see it in my head. It looks great, but that's what I'm trying to articulate. From that moment onwards, there was a puppet master pulling Jason's strings. But also, there, I do admit, obviously there were seeds there that made Jason a bit aggy at the Titans anyway. But when that drug is completely removed, well, yeah, he's a guy who wouldn't necessarily want to kill Dick Grayson there being on the floor. He's not a psychopath that, as we've learned, other Gotham citizens turn into when under the influence of this drug. But going back to the Blackfire, Corey, Superboy stuff, after the scene, we have Corey snap out of it and she was about to fry Blackfire. I also liked how we saw a little power, like a supersonic cry, come out of Blackfire that kind of cancelled out Starfire about to literally fry her sister. She thinks that somebody is trying to tell her something, so they put her in that deprivation tank again. She gets out, but this time she's got Superboy and Blackfire kind of there to, you know, make sure nothing goes wrong. Once again, I enjoyed a little kind of awkward chemistry between those two, trying to avoid telling Starfire about their somewhat relationship at the minute. But yeah, let's jump into where that takes Starfire. And this then takes her out onto the street. She nicked Bruce Wayne's car. She circled around this area. And what I wanted to get down to the bottom of is who is telling her something. Now, we know that Blackfire was able to communicate something with her, well, where she was, her pain, and trying to get Starfire to maybe come after her. Now, I'm guessing that someone else can do that. However, it might be through quite a few light years away. I don't know. By the way, even though I've got access to next week's episode, I haven't seen it yet, which I wanted to do deliberately so I could do predictions in this episode. So the woman in that flashback, so well, first of all, let's start at the beginning. She sat down, she's looking through this kind of pamphlet thing. It says like the crown of Tamaran. It's kind of symbolic of obviously what was, you know, a part of her destiny to rule over Tamaran. But then we saw that crib being lowered onto the stage. Now, this was quite ambiguous, I have to admit, and there's a few things you can draw out of it. And we heard that lady up in the back corner of the audience saying, "My baby." And in the crib, you have to think that's a mini Starfire, so to speak, because the eyes glow green. I don't think this is meant to be symbolic of Corey's previous baby or anything like that. I think that must be like a younger version of Starfire's mother, because if I remember correctly, I swear we did get a costume photo or leak or something of Starfire's mother being suited for what her Tamaranian outfit would look like and stuff. But the thing is, Blackfire killed her parents. So this is kind of the confusing thing. If I believe that is Starfire's mother younger, and that is, you know, the baby in the crib being lowered onto the stage is a younger Corey, this is obviously meant to foreshadow and kind of be symbolizing her destiny as queen and whatnot. Who is giving her these visions? So I would love your guys' insight on this. What do you think this is truly meant to symbolize? Meanwhile, though, we have Scarecrow on the floor after being knocked out from Red Hood earlier, but this moment was, showing more of Scarecrow's unhingedness. It was also just showing a bit of his ego as well, because this guy, even though he's been really nice offering him a yogurt, was also just making a deal out of whoever was trying to drill in through this like 10 foot of steel or whatever. It's a bit of a jackass because they couldn't figure that out, and you could see that kind of resentment that Crane had for, he's a very smart person, but obviously he wasn't so smart if he thought that he could be using a concrete drill through a 10-foot steel plate. That just wouldn't work out. So once again, it kind of chips away at Scarecrow's ego, so to speak. So he snaps the guy's neck. One thing I did think in this moment, though, as soon as he said that you need like a acetylene torch, you know, the size of a sun to cut through that, you just know when there's a line like that, I thought personally it was maybe going to be Superboy inadvertently, or maybe Crypto lasering through it later on, but it turned out to be Starfire, and to be honest, I should have got that through the sun comment. But no, to be fair, that is kind of Kryptonian as well. And we got that scene with Jason going to this kind of underground place where you could spectate certain things, shall we say, but he uses this as an opportunity, and I think what would have been better served in this moment, even though I like the way they kind of did it, like he wanted these people to be Hank and Dawn so he could speak to them and just kind of work through a bit of his feelings. But I would have loved for him to go back to Leslie Tompkins, because even though that might have intimidated her, you can already imagine the scene. He like knocks on the door. She's initially like kind of scared because obviously she's like, wait, didn't you die and stuff? But I feel like the Lee Tompkins we see in this iteration would have, she's used to a bit of danger. So I think she still would have opened that door and allowed a conversation to take place. That's just my personal preference of another way I could have seen it going. I still really like this, and who knows, we could still even get a Lee Tompkins moment at some point the rest of this season. I just felt like that would have been a really good way for Lee to tackle some of the issues. The funny thing is, the Hank who walked out, I felt like he did speak like Hank, and how he says, don't worry about it, shit happens. I literally imagined Alan Richardson's Hank saying that in that moment. But yeah, despite that guy walking out, what the girl had to say, who was playing Dawn, is that there is usually one place that does forgive anything, and that is home. And now that is, once again, a big theme of this season, through what Greg Walker, the showrunner, has said, in that this season, it's not like, yes, we've pulled the Titans apart in the first couple of seasons and fans want the Titans to be a Titans team, and this season, you know, they are kind of the team, but it's about them enduring what they're going through and managing to still stay together and realize, who am I, why am I doing this, and that is more of the thematic approach to this season. So I like how this brought out those comments of what Greg Walker has said and how it's highlighting family. Now, we had that Barbara's ceiling thing happen, you know, where later at the end of the episode, it just burst through. For a second, I thought, okay, is that acid? But no, it really was just water. But what I think that was, just jumping to that, I guess, because this was the next scene with them just first talking about it, I think it was meant to symbolize maybe just, you know, how the plan of Scarecrow has truly just breached through now. And at the end of the day, with the end of the episode, the chemicals are in the waterline now. So clearly things are not going to be good in Gotham, and everything has burst through. But I also thought, did anyone else think for a split second, if Barbara was there, it was going to be melting the desk or something? But it didn't turn out to be that. But anyway, we have Dick going back to Wayne Manor, but he gets a vision of himself dressed in a young Robin costume, and the younger Dick Grayson says it's all gone. The old road, the old house, you're never going to find them. And then we see him return to Wayne Manor, and he's really getting spooned out through what he's going through here. But this gets to that moment where Molly Rangar, I've already spoke about this earlier, Dick decides to meet Jason in the tunnels where Jason requested to meet, which is these runners tunnels that they built back in the day, and Bruce used it as an escape route, which is also just nice to imagine, because obviously Batman navigating those tunnels and just popping up from out of one of them is a way he can get around quickly. And even Tim Drake says later on that he saw Batman getting out. Could you imagine seeing Batman coming out of one of those tunnels? That'd be fantastic. So Dick goes to the entrance of the tunnels, and this is where Tim Drake pops up once again. And this is where that quote just came from that I spoke about. But he says that, I don't know where you're getting these ideas from, Tim. I'm just a regular guy doing regular things. I like the little back and forth because it's like, come on, Dick, drop the axe. This kid knows. But this ended up, unfortunately, with Tim Drake saying, I'm going to find Red Hood and Scarecrow and show you how it's done. And I was just like, oh no, that's just really not a good idea. Like, okay, I get your ambition, but you're not trained. You're like, this isn't going to go well for you. Jason spoke to Dick over the comms, and we even got a little flashback of a mini Dick Grayson once again, kind of seeming a little bit afraid, saying, you know, I know the way out, and I always enjoy seeing the flashbacks to younger Robin stuff, even if it's just as minimalistic as this. It's always kind of nice to see how things went back in the past with Batman training his Robins, even though not everyone agrees on it, because some of it was quite messed up and harsh. It's still insight as a Bat fan I love to know about. Now, this was interesting with what Jason said, though, because he was saying, after Dick says, what do you want? He was like, I want to go home, to be with my friends again, you know, to be a Titan again. And to be fair, I would have said the same thing. You killed Hank. But this is also true with what Jason said. That wasn't necessarily me. That was the drugs talking, Crane talking too. But I'm clean now. He says, you can come home if you give up Crane. And that eventually is what he agrees to do. But also, of course, we had Scarecrow feeling like a bit insecure, as if he's been left out in a lurch by an old friend or something who was tracking him. He must have put a tracker in Jason when obviously he woke for the first time after being resurrected from the Lazarus pit. This is what started the events of what led up to those final moments at the end of the episode. But how could I forget, I almost did, about that scene between Scarecrow and his mother. I think this is probably my favorite Vincent Kartheiser scare, other than the little scream at the end, of course. But that scene between him and his mother, oh, like, as I said, Vincent Kartheiser's Scarecrow and the character in of itself is at its best when he is this desperate. And when he saw his mother in that moment, wow. Like, you know, where Ed was just kind of pulling his face and, like, he was sinking in the chair, talking about the metaphor of the dark monster. And long story short, he realized that his mom called, like, the SWAT or the GCPD on him to come in, so he kind of spun his mother's neck around 50 times because you could see, yeah, just how broken her neck was, which I'm sure is something maybe Crane has wanted to do for a long time. Back to the scene that followed the tunnel scene. I thought this was a really good scene to put in from the writers, and I'm so glad that they did it, because they must have obviously known that if they didn't, people would be asking these very questions that the Titans were asking. That is, you said he could do what? He killed Hank. He kidnapped kids. He made that woman snap her own neck. Very true. I mean, even though technically that was... And I'm glad Gar was here, because he was kind of the voice of the people who would defend this. Because, yes, even though that woman blew up people who, you know, which killed other people in the bank, which was, you know, Red Hood's doing through Scarecrow, he likened it to that of the analogy of, you know, well, technically I was brainwashed. You didn't hold me accountable when Cadmus took me over and made me a killer. And he literally, what was it, like he killed a whole cafe full of people and even more people, like ripped him apart, like arguably darker and more gruesome than what Jason has done. He says that Jason deserves the same chance. Now, I can already tell that for some people, and this will be the interesting, healthy debate to have here, yes, I think Gar being literally reprogrammed through brainwashing is a bit more easier to understand, and it just depends if you can view Scarecrow's drug as kind of the same parallel kind of story with how it kind of did reprogram Jason. And I've been mentioning this a lot, brain chemistry, things like that. It kind of is the same, but as I said, it is easier to understand Beast Boy's one. So this scene may not have made it work for everyone with what they were trying to do, because this scene was ultimately meant to serve with how can you forgive him? How can you forgive him? We need to, you know, bring up the audience's concerns, use Beast Boy to kind of counter that with, hey, you forgave me, like, you know, I did all this. But it just depends if the audience will absorb the drugs to, as I keep saying, to be as good of a excuse as the brainwashing to Gar. Because otherwise it does just appear like, what, is he just going to come back home, as Superboy said, set up a seat at the table for him? Hey Jason, pass the mashed potatoes. Obviously it's not as easy as that, and he will still need to be held accountable, but also this is something important. Nothing is ever black and white as it seems, and it most certainly isn't with Jason and the drugs that cause the utter apathy and psychopathy that has been caused in even other Gotham citizens. And then guys, the the end of the episode. We have Tim Drake follow Jason to the little pipeline place that leads to Gotham's main pipeline of water. And yeah, this is where everything was going to go down. And it was really meant to be the end of it all, because Jason was giving up Scarecrow. He was going to turn himself in. But Tim Drake followed him. And the reason why I laughed just then is because Scarecrow shot him. Now, I didn't expect that, by the way. But it's just the way Scarecrow shot him, as if he was taking out the trash. He was like, you know, right, back to business, I guess. But yeah, I felt so sorry for Tim. I mean, it was very obvious, as I said earlier, like, dude, you're gonna get way over your head, but this was kind of horrible at the same time, because, oh, I loved how Jason came over him as well, because, yet again, they both don't quite know what they've done, well, what Jason, he doesn't realize what he's done to Tim, and that is still yet to come. I thought in this moment as well, maybe Tim would have revealed that, but as I said earlier, I don't think Tim has made that connection to Jason standing out in the street in the hoodie, being the one who gave those thugs the drugs that led to his father getting shot, but yeah, I thought this may have been the moment where Jason also felt extremely guilty that the kid who's bleeding out right here is also somebody who's been affected by him. But at least they've met. That was a really good way to start that off, at least. Titans arrive as all of this was happening because, you know, they were going to get there anyway. Luckily, the bullet went clean through after Superboy scanned him. I thought maybe they were going to just obviously kind of, you know, cauterize the wound through Superboy's heat vision, but they didn't do that. His lungs were filling up. That was obviously very bad because he can drown if his lungs are filling up with blood. Now, as I said earlier, Nightwing saw himself there. Yet again, I can't really take any other symbolic foreshadowing out of this other than Nightwing's going away now, and he's, even if it's inadvertent and even if he's reluctant to, he's heading into Batman territory. Even if I'm completely misreading that, like, what else can you read out of that? I think that would be way too soon, though. He's literally only just become Nightwing, but it is what it is. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts on that. This then proceeds into the actual pipeline place itself, and this is where we see Scarecrow hiding. We get that moment that I keep going on about where he says, "Too afraid to take any risks, John. F you, Mum," and he just goes out, does a massive ree, and Starfire sends a blast, and it does exactly what it wanted to happen. The only slight nitpick I have in this moment is immediately after that blast, Scarecrow would have still had to have gone down there and put the chemicals into the pipeline, which he obviously did, but it's just, you know, in the space of time that elapsed, it just seemed kind of like how many chemicals could have really gone in there. Nightwing could have just pulled it out, and surely not that much would have gone in there. Do you see what I'm saying? Because the explosion happened, Scarecrow would have had to got the barrel, put it there, put it in, and then, like, obviously the chemicals would be going into the main water of Gotham and stuff, but it's just, it happened in such a short amount of time that it's just like, explosion. I don't know. Do you see where I'm going with that? But nitpick aside, as Starfire said, are you telling me that I just dosed all of Gotham? And that's kind of true. Then the Titan signal turned red. It doesn't really make sense. I guess that was a bit of a rule of cool moment because, you know, it's just like symbolizing, okay, just like the water bursting through, shit is getting even more real now. Just as Scarecrow seemed like he was on the out after a few episodes of him just being such a mastermind, it seems that he's found his footing again because, well, he's achieved the one thing that Batman always stopped him from doing, and that is the kind of Batman Begins thing. Infiltrating all of Gotham's water, drinking water with, you know, his drug. And that was the end of the episode. So overall, guys, I really enjoyed it. It was a really decent episode, I would say. I loved all the character moments we got. I feel like they did very well with Tim Drake. We're on the slow road to recovery with Jason Todd, but, you know, being quote-unquote redeemed is still a debate. But the question is, where does it go from here? Because Scarecrow's achieved that. I'm guessing he's out in the wind now, so what's his plan after this? And not only that, does this make Jason look worse in Nightwing's eyes? Because why did Jason run away when he could have just gone to Dick? What I am kind of concerned about is in the next episode that maybe after, you know, Dick agreeing to maybe let him come back, if he just turns himself in, gives Scarecrow up and whatnot, after he ran away, is that going to just make him look incredibly bad and make just Dick have tunnel vision to just get Jason at all costs? And I just wouldn't like that because it's just like, he didn't do that, you know? He's still willing to turn himself in. So I don't actually know where things are going to go from here on out, other than we have obviously got the Themyscira storyline to continue. A lot of you guys are really desperate to see that, and a lot of you are wondering where is Raven. That does appear to be coming next week, so that's it. Well, I keep saying where do things go after this, but maybe next week's episode is a bit of an interlude episode that you could maybe liken into that of episode 5, where we're going to go to the events of something else. But yeah, I'm going to leave the discussion to the comment section now. I read every single comment, so please get involved. I love reading every single one. So yeah, like this video if you did enjoy it, guys. Please subscribe if you aren't subscribed already to make sure you stay up to date with all kinds of videos just like this. As always, in the top pinned comment, you can follow me on social media. That is where I post all my links in the comment section right at the very top, and you can join my Discord and other cool places like that. But everyone, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow Titans in the next video. Goodbye.